This is I Love Black People Radio on HUR Voices, Sirius XM Channel 141. I Love Black People is more than a radio show. I Love Black People is a call from our ancestors to protect us from racial profiling all across the world. Go to iloveblackpeople.com and become a member today. Membership empowers you to live fearlessly and protect Black people globally from racism and xenophobia. Join us today and become a member of our global network with an online global green book with Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses to protect you and your community. Membership is free, and with you, we will become 10 million strong worldwide. I am because we are. Special thanks to AFLAC for supporting I Love Black People Radio.
Greetings, amazing I Love Black People listeners. Definitely appreciate everyone who's continuing to be on this journey. We start off the year with so much possibility. We've come through some hard times, but we also should be grateful for the good times. And I think one of the things that life continues to teach, is how to live in gratitude and how to appreciate your loved ones and the folks around you who are supportive and not dwelling on the negativity. I think sometimes it really impacts people's health who spend so much of their time stressed out over the things that impact them negatively instead of just kind of focusing on the positive. So I just wanted to start that off for anyone who might need that. Look, just keep the faith, baby. That's something that we should consider very strongly and be thankful that we made it. Everybody didn't make it to 2024, so we're thankful for it, and we appreciate it, everyone who's made it possible to have this show, to have this opportunity to share, and also be able to elevate the work that we're doing. Again, as you know, I'm a co-founder of the startup I Love Black People, and we literally spend every day building using technology as safety net to protect our community from Afrophobia and racism. And Afrophobia is defined as the irrational fear or hatred of people perceived to be of African descent. And so for us, what can we do to make a difference in that? And as an engineer, as you know myself, I'm a mechanical engineer with the Tuskegee and finished at Howard University in mechanical engineering. Our co-founder, Mr. Christopher Mapindera, also attended Howard University alum. So we come at the issues that face our community from an engineering technical background, and we do as much as possible to collaborate with brothers and sisters in all walks of life. And this program allows us to elevate those voices and elevate those ideas. And so, one of the big things that happened recently was the Consumer Electronics Show, which is held every year in Las Vegas. A pretty amazing show. Like, it actually has all the tech activity, gadgets, all the latest of all the different genres of technology, from home appliances to artificial intelligence to space to underwater to solar, so much blockchain. And so one of the things, and this is probably my fifth time attending, and what's always helpful with it is getting insight into what people are doing in different fields and figuring out how these technologies can be leveraged to solve old problems. We would say new solutions to old problems that we face in our community. And again, as I tell people, technology is neither good or bad. Technology, nuclear energy, is something that is used for electricity, to power cities, and it's also something that was used to kill people all over the world. So we need to be clear that this technology is neither good or bad. It's literally in our hands. Now, I will say nuclear, even if you use it for energy, there's a problem with the nuclear waste, that this spent fuel has to be stored somewhere, and that oftentimes continues to be an issue. So even with these so-called solutions, I would also say that there's never, something that has only pros with no cons. I think any critical analysis of any solution will allow you to at least be able to truthfully speak to that and then figure out do those cons, are they acceptable, or is there any way to mitigate those negative aspects of the particular technology? And again, it's up to us to be involved and engaged and understand these technologies so that we can be the ones to determine what happens with these technology and make sure that either we benefit as a community or we make sure we protect our community. So, again, everyone knows that artificial intelligence is a huge issue, and really discussing how this technology will be used. And one of the things that came out was someone was saying, was it workers versus artificial intelligence? And then someone else said, no, 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 it's workers using artificial intelligence versus the ones that don't. I think one of the problems with a lot of these arguments, when it's based on workers fighting each other or someone taking jobs, it misses the point of capitalism having being really the source of a lot of these issues. Where only a few handful of people benefit from the work of the masses. And I think one of the things when we think about these technological advancements, oftentimes the people who are actually using them are using them for capitalist gain, and it's often at the expense of the worker. So I think the real issue in some of these conversations where people are anti-tech, they're really anti the capitalist model, where it's how can the fewest people get the most instead of having the most get the most people get as much as possible. And with the artificial intelligence, it seems to be the same way. We're already using artificial intelligence. Some of the predictive and some of the information you get from your GPS when you're searching and you're driving. There's algorithms that are taking your feedback and using that to develop a better result for you. And machine learning, artificial intelligence, these are things that are actually in the back end of much of what we're doing already. Now, the question is again, are we going to be aware and are we going to make sure that these things don't harm our community? Are we going to make sure that we're able to leverage these things to maximize? As a startup, what happens with artificial intelligence, a lot of it can help us grow our capacity. As a startup, you have limited resources and you want to hire more people, but you don't have the funds. So you want your current employees to be able to do as much as possible, as excellent as possible. So when you're talking about using like Chat GPT or some of these things, they actually give folks the ability who may not be, let's say, good. They might be tech folks, but not good with their English and actually writing skills. In many ways, a lot of this artificial intelligence people are using to improve their writing and improve their communication skills. So there are things that people are using, and this is just like the surface. There's also Dolly, there's use of artificial intelligence to actually use that to do for graphic design. And one of the things that they even talked about is that, more and more, instead of you having to be a computer programmer or somebody who's a coder, natural languages will be able to be used to give instructions so that you can develop your own applications without even know how to write code. That's the advancements. We have what they call low code or no code right now. Soon you'll be able just to give instructions, and literally those instructions through artificial intelligence will be used to uh, write the syntax in a particular language to actually make a particular thing happen. So a lot of this is actually happening now. So as much as people say you need to learn the code, there is a big push to actually say, you know what, you may not even have to know how to code, but where does that leave us? You still gonna have to be creative. You still gonna have to have the ability to have vision and see. Because again, I tell people they may have artificial intelligence, but we have a spiritual intelligence that comes from a higher source than whoever wrote the algorithm. So the question becomes how do you mesh or leverage your own spiritual intelligence and these tools that we find ourselves with? And how do we then direct those tools to the problems that we currently have? And as you know, and listening to me in other episodes, one of the biggest agendas that we have at I Love Black People is dealing with the issue of violence, and figuring out how do we leverage the technology we have to actually solve a problem of violence in our communities. It's unacceptable, that our children still can be murdered with guns. Like, this is unacceptable, and so often, instead of us saying that we need to protect them, we talk about protecting ourselves from the children, and that in lies the problem, where you can't even discuss a solution. Well, if your premise is that the children are the villains, you might actually harm more children. But if you realize that the children are actually the victims, if a 12-year-old is carjacking or involved in a violent crime, that means somebody did something to that child. And how do we protect children so those things aren't done? Because there's no 12-year-old like a mastermind carjacking. There's an adult, there's someone else involved. And the question is, are we going to do what's necessary to protect them? And I say that from a perspective of, as a Gen Xer, where my generation was blamed for drugs, and no one in my community had a passport or understood customs. Yet there were people in my community who was selling and who were actually on cocaine, crack cocaine, and cocaine is actually grown in a foreign country, actually like a grown like coca, like it's actually a plant. So there's like a farmer, and none of the people in my neighborhood were farmers. So to somehow make my generation responsible for drug trafficking is just ridiculous and problematic, because instead of actually trying to protect us, we were actually the villains. We were the ones that were being locked up and three strikes you're out, and actually being shot and killed and being harmed by this drug trafficking. And as a generation now that we're the adults in the room, I think it's unacceptable for us to ever blame teenagers for the ills of society or the problems in our society. We are the solution. We're the adults in the room. We have to figure out how to make sure our children aren't being harmed or someone being, taking advantage of them, molesting them in a way that now they feel they got to go out and do some violent act. So in many ways, our question often comes down to, for us that I Love Black People, is how do we use our skills to face these problems? And how do we get as many people to prioritize the issues in our community as violence? Because oftentimes you hear people say, well, the issue is generational wealth. Well, I don't care how rich or poor you are, this violence that's taking place in our children is impacting everybody. And so, we really think that if our people are safe, they can be more productive. And when I say productive, in whatever way they choose to, they can be more successful if they're safe. But if you're worried about someone harming you, that distraction or the necessity to protect yourself can get so overwhelming that it doesn't allow you to reach your higher self. So for us, it's important that we focus on how do we use the tools, be it from the Consumer Electronics Show, where they're talking about different, even predictive type technologies, where we can actually prevent something from happening before it happens. But we need to be focusing on how do we use those tools uh, to protect our children. They're the most vulnerable. They're the ones who don't have agency. And instead of allowing the media or allowing the circumstances that we find ourselves in currently to make those young people the enemy or the villain, we need to be figuring out ways to protect them, because they're really the victim. Any child that's participating in violence is literally losing their life. They're literally losing their opportunities in life. We have to be the adults that actually change that. So we're definitely looking at ways to help folks who are already doing the work in the community, like people like Ron Moten, who has a host of organizations based here in Washington D.C. And we think if we're effective at solving these problems in the DMV, that's the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, where you have some of the highest concentration of educated, college educated Black people, one of the highest populations of affluent Black people. What does affluency in education really mean if you can't protect your young people from violence? What's political power mean when you can't stop people from shooting your children? So for us, we think that if we can figure it out here with the help of you, the listeners, and other folks, we can apply it here where we have such a great concentration of some amazing Black folks in a very small area that we could create an oasis, a place that no matter where you are from, you can come here and you know your children are going to be safe. Like that is worth, again, people talk about generational wealth. How much money would that be worth? If we had an area of the world where young Black children are never molested or harmed or murdered, that would be amazing. Where there's no one carjacking them or they're participating in that or any armed robberies. There might be a couple of fights, hand fights, or people saying harsh words here and there, but by and large, we're talking about an area where our children have the opportunity to actually manifest who they should be. And again, let me just say this. I know oftentimes people talk about the cause of these problems, but I'm at the point, and this is because I'm an engineer and not somebody in social science. I'm in applied sciences. The cause of rape is not joblessness or ignorance or late night staying up or alcohol or short dresses. The cause of rape is rapists. That's the cause. And when I think about that as it relates to what we're dealing with, gun violence, what we're dealing with oppression, the people that we're seeing going through, our young children going through this, the cause of that problem is the oppressor. They're in an oppressive environment. And we got to do something to change that. And we can, and we will. And we want, as I Love Black people, to leverage technologies that basically give us scalable solutions so that the Black masses can actually make these changes for themselves. Let me say it another way. What we're here to do is to see how we can leverage the resources we have and the expertise and technology we have to amplify, to collaborate, to curate solutions that are incredibly scalable, that can be done right now, not one someday later, to stop our young people from being harmed by gun violence. And we focus on gun violence because, like, a knife crime is one of those things. Somebody stabs somebody, it could be a butcher knife in the house. But when you start talking about gun crimes, you're talking about something that's manufactured, something that then has to be transported, something that has then be obtained, then carried, and then if it's bullets, of course, in it, those bullets have to be purchased themselves, and then they got to be replaced when used. Like, there's a whole bunch of parts of the process involving these gun crimes that, with all the technology, I mean, we live in a surveillance society where literally people are being watched at every point. There's no excuse why our children have to be in fear of this gun violence. So much of the work we're doing is, again, elevating these issues, but also communicating these issues in ways where we are collaborating with people with solutions that can use technology to empower our brothers and sisters, you know, in everyday life in ways to actually stop this from happening. And we've had some, really good conversation also with people talking about, some of these social media like TikTok and some of these other things where they're promoting violence, even with these games. One of the things at CES, they were talking about the different gaming devices and how many of these games are promoting, like Grand Theft and other things, promoting this violence. And one of the points being made is that just as much as developers and people who code are making TikTok, we have coders in our community. We can develop things that actually just as much as they're doing deliberate things to harm our children, we can do things deliberately to protect them. Now, some of that is when people start talking about regulation and the legislature getting involved with creating laws. I think all that's great. Our approach oftentimes is not necessarily waiting for politicians to do the right thing, but asking ourselves, we have developers and coders in our community, getting those tech people to see the problem of violence in our community as a priority to them. Now I'll be candid. What often happens with some of the best and brightest in our Black communities, they get seduced by large corporations who have them maintaining the status quo, and of course, they get a lot of goodies for doing that. So I don't think people who don't try to help are sellouts. I think what happens is that, you got student loans, you got, your family. Many times in our community, a lot of our best and brightest are, first generation, second generation college. So, with some debt, I don't fault someone who's saying, look, I gotta help. But what they say in the airplane, you gotta put the mask on yourself first. So I think in many ways our people talk about putting that mask on first, but the question is what kind of mask they wearing. Is that mask, covering their eyes where they can't see what's going on anymore? Or is that mask so important that they're not willing to help someone else with their mask? So I think in the real way it's about us trying to figure out still taking care of our issues of family, maintaining our bills and what have you, but taking, maybe it's a couple hours a week, couple hours a month, and figuring out a way of how to leverage your relationships, your experience, and your expertise to solve this problem. Let me say it another way. I'm saying it to say that we got accountants, we have doctors, we have folks with so many skills. How do we leverage those amazing skills to not just make money, but come up with new solutions to old problems in our communities? Because we're kind of clear now that these things are happening in the same areas, in the same people, in the same situation. Even if we come up with solutions that don't work, I think the thing that I've learned in tech in Silicon Valley is, again, some of these failures are part of the success. It's part of the process. What we can't do is to give up or to look at our children as the villains. Our children are the victims. And because they don't have the agency, they can't speak out and articulate that. But we need to use that expertise that we have to help do that. And as we go into 2024, that's what we're doing at I Love Black People. We've launched a new version of our app, and we're getting folks to use that. Please download it. It's on Apple Store and an Android, Google Play. You can download the app, and our app allows you to help us build this global safety net. And this global safety net is actually using a level of Black unity, Pan Africanism, where we come together for a common cause to create a safe spaces for ourselves, identifying them and sharing them with each other. So our focus is literally getting as many folks who are interested in creating safe spaces for Black folks you don't even know. But because you understand that we're connected, you're willing to spend that time to make that difference. So we're definitely want to get as many people out and involved in the work we're doing to leverage the technology. With that being said, we're also going to be sharing information about other groups that are doing amazing things around protecting our people from violence. We also are doing organizing still on the continent of Africa. We got a great project called Pan African Unity. One of the things we talk about oftentimes is that until we make sure Africa is respected, Africans, no matter where they are in the world won't be respected. I think that was Marcus Garvey. But the point being made is we also have to use our energy to help and protect Mother Africa. And for those who are Pan-Africanists, it's just easy to relate to. We're literally working with our brothers and sisters on the continent. Coco, this is about how we come together to protect each other, create environments where we can literally live fearlessly, not being worried about someone trying to harm us through Afrophobia or some other types of attack. So it's definitely important that we get as many of you to get involved. Make sure you follow us on our social media. Go to iloveblackpeople.com. Make sure that you download the app. I can be contacted on Twitter. Skinner Liberated is my handle. You can definitely go to I Love Black People app if you want to follow us on social media. And we always have a Saturday class where we teach Pan-African history with Dr. Tyreen Wright and Professor Anana Akua. And as I always leave off, I am because we are. Thank you so much.
This is I Love Black People Radio on HUR Voices, Sirius XM Channel 141. I Love Black People is more than a radio show. I Love Black People is a call from our ancestors to protect us from racial profiling all across the world. Go to iloveblackpeople.com and become a member today. Membership empowers you to live fearlessly and protect Black people globally from racism and xenophobia. Join us today and become a member of our global network with an online global green book with Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses to protect you and your community. Membership is free, and with you, we will become 10 million strong worldwide. I am because we are. Special thanks to AFLAC for supporting I Love Black People Radio.